Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. She was in the kitchen singing along to some 2000s pop song, barefoot, flipping pancakes like it was any other Saturday morning. And I stood in the hallway, watching her, holding the envelope that would end our marriage. That envelope contained a single printout, a screenshot, for lines of text, one photo, and enough pain to crush 5 years of what I thought was love. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I watched her laugh at the sizzling butter. Her hair was tied up the way she always did when she didn't want to be seen, even though she looked beautiful without trying. She poured syrup like she wasn't guilty, like she wasn't cheating on me with a man named Clay. Yeah, Clay. That's the name that came up over and over again in the messages I found. Not even hidden, just tucked inside a folder on our shared tablet labeled grocery lists. Grocery lists. As if betrayal had become just another item between toothpaste and avocados. I hadn't slept the night before. I sat in the car in the driveway, just staring at the windshield like it held answers. I couldn't confront her then. I didn't have the strength. I was scared I'd break down, or worse, beg her to deny it. But this morning, I had a plan. I would eat the pancakes. I would smile. I would talk about the weather. I would pack my things. I would walk away, and she would never see it coming. You might think that's cowardly, to leave without a word. But if you've ever loved someone so much it burned through your spine, only to realize they were never truly yours, then maybe you'll understand. We didn't have kids, just a mortgage and matching toothbrushes, and a shared Spotify account, which, ironically, is how I first noticed something was off. Late one night, I saw she was listening to a playlist titled For Us, Private. I clicked it. Every song was about sneaking around, about finding love where it shouldn't exist, about him, Clay. Her colleague from the firm she used to complain about. I thought she hated him. I thought he was the reason she wanted to work from home more often. Turns out, she wasn't working. She was falling in love with the man I used to joke about behind her back. And me? I was just there. A backdrop. A placeholder. I still don't know what hurts more, the lies, or how well she wore them. Like a second skin. So that morning, I waited. I took one last photo of her at the stove, for reasons I still don't understand. Maybe to remind myself that monsters don't always have claws. Sometimes they hum Britney Spears and serve you pancakes with blueberries. And then, I left. I walked out the door with nothing but a duffel bag, my car keys, and that envelope. She didn't even hear me go. But the part one never saw coming? She found me. And that's where this story really begins. I thought disappearing would be easy. You just drive far enough, change your name at the coffee shop, stop checking your old email, and pretend your past was a different person's nightmare. But grief has a way of crawling into every crevice. Even the off-brand motel soap started to smell like her shampoo. And when I lay on that stiff mattress at night, the silence wasn't peaceful, it was deafening. I stayed in a small town 2 hours north, the kind of place that had one diner, one gas station, and way too many people who waved at strangers. It was safe, quiet. It didn't ask questions. I paid cash. Used a fake last name. Told the front desk I was a freelance photographer working on some fictional forest project. They smiled and didn't press. God bless small-town disinterest. Every day, I repeated the same routine. Wake up at 6 a.m., go for a run, eat dry toast at that greasy diner, and pretend I wasn't someone who had just walked away from a 5-year marriage without a single explanation. Some days I convinced myself I'd done the right thing. Other days, I hated myself for not yelling, for not demanding answers, for not throwing every plate in the kitchen just to make her feel something. But the weirdest part? She never called, never texted, no messages, no voicemails, not even a passive-aggressive email asking where the tax papers were. It was like I had been deleted too, and that crushed me more than the betrayal. Until the 5th day, that morning, a knock came on the motel door. I didn't move at first, assumed it was housekeeping. But it came again. Firmer. 3 short knocks. I stayed frozen, heart pounding like I'd committed a crime. And then silence. I peeked through the window. No one. But there was something on the ground. An envelope. No writing. Just my name scribbled in blue ink. Irving. Not honey. Not babe. Just Irving. My hands shook as I picked it up. I wasn't ready to open it. But I did. Inside were 2 things. A photo of me standing in the diner the day before, and a note. I know where you are. I'm not giving up on us. That's when my knees nearly gave out. She had found me. She was watching. But how? I hadn't told anyone where I went. I'd even turned off location sharing, ditched my social media, used cash. I was careful, so careful. And yet, there I was, captured in grainy detail, mid-bite of a sandwich, like some low-rent detective film. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and sat in the dark for the rest of the day. Was she nearby? Had she been watching me this whole time? Did she feel guilty? Or was this something darker? And the question that scared me most, why didn't I feel angry? Why did part of me feel something else? A twisted, horrible ache that almost felt like longing. Because as broken as I wasn't ready for what she'd do next. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside the motel room had me on edge. Footsteps, car doors, distant coughing. I kept the lights off and sat with my back against the wall, phone in hand. Even though I'd already turned off location services and deleted every app that could trace me. Still, I kept thinking, how did she find me? I hadn't told a soul. Not my brother, not my old coworker Davis, not even my mother. I'd ghosted the entire world. So how did Felice, the woman who once forgot our anniversary, track me down within days? By morning, my nerves were shot. I shaved, packed my duffel, checked out early, and drove without a destination. I ended up at a rundown coffee shop 30 miles away. I sat near the back, kept my head low, ordered a black coffee and stale banana muffin, and tried to blend into the wallpaper. No one looked at me, except the barista. She had this strange expression, almost like she recognized me, but not from a "hey, I know you" place, more like someone who'd seen your photo before. I left a $5 tip and hurried out. And then things got weirder. When I got back to my car, there was a sticky note under the windshield wiper. Bright yellow, like the ones we used to leave on the fridge for grocery lists or passive-aggressive reminders about dirty dishes. But this one said, "Leaving doesn't erase what we had." I spun around so fast I nearly fell into traffic. No one was there. The street was mostly empty except for a man walking his dog on the far sidewalk and a kid on a bike. No sign of her car, her face, nothing. But that note, her handwriting was unmistakable. The loopy G, the little heart shaped over the I. It was her. At that point, I started questioning my own reality. Had I mentioned this place in passing once during a late-night conversation? Did she have some app on my phone before I reset it? Or was she just guessing towns until she got lucky? I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't guilt. It was control. Like she wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to keep me from escaping her version of the truth. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't doing it alone. That night, I drove until I reached a small campground near a river. I rented a tiny cabin with no Wi-Fi and barely working electricity. I figured if she couldn't find me digitally, maybe I'd finally get some peace. I sat by the water for hours, watching the ripples move like time itself. Never still, never predictable. Then, around 11 p.m., I heard my name. Softly, from the woods. Irving. It wasn't loud. It wasn't panicked. It was calm. Too calm. Like a dream you don't realize is a nightmare until it's too late. I stood frozen, heart punching through my ribs. I backed toward the cabin slowly, not blinking, scanning the trees. But no one emerged. Not that night. Not yet. I locked the door, pulled the tiny table against it, and sat on the floor with a flashlight in one hand and a fire poker in the other. Was I losing my mind? Or was Felice turning into someone I didn't, or never really did, know at all? I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat on the wooden floor of that freezing cabin, knees pulled to my chest like a scared kid, gripping the fire poker until my hands cramped. Every branch creak or rustling wind outside sent adrenaline straight to my chest. I kept replaying the sound of her voice, soft, steady, chilling. It didn't sound desperate. It sounded sure, like she already knew she'd find me, like I was just another page in her unfinished chapter. When the first light broke through the dusty curtains, I stumbled outside. My legs were stiff, and my mind felt like it had aged 10 years overnight. I checked the perimeter. No footprints, no tire tracks, no signs of life. Just mud, leaves, and the mocking quiet of nature. I tried telling myself it was a dream, that I'd fallen asleep and imagined the whole thing. But I wasn't that lucky. I left before anyone at the campground even woke up. Didn't say a word. I just threw my stuff in the car and drove. This time, I didn't stop until I reached a busy city. I figured blending into the chaos might help. I checked into a mid-range hotel under a new fake name, Theo Darnell. which sounded ridiculous, but I was done caring about logic. I paid cash. I didn't use my phone. I didn't go near anything traceable. I spent most of the day in the hotel lobby, surrounded by strangers with places to go and lives that weren't unraveling. I sat in a stiff armchair and tried to breathe normally. I watched families check in, business people rush out, a couple arguing near the elevators. Life kept moving like mine wasn't on pause. I hated how normal the world seemed. But then something happened that made my stomach twist. Around 4 p.m., the front desk clerk picked up the phone, nodded, and then turned toward me. "Mr. Darnell," he said, "your wife just called. She said she's on her way up." I swear my heart stopped. "I don't," I stammered, standing too fast. "I don't have a wife. That's not. I didn't give anyone this name." The clerk frowned, confused. "She knew your room number." That was it. I didn't wait. I grabbed my bag, bolted through the side exit, and ran. Not walked, ran. Through an alley, across a parking lot, past a line of honking taxis. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I saw her face again, I didn't know what I'd do. Cry? Scream? Collapse? I ended up in an abandoned train station 2 miles away, hiding in a maintenance stairwell like some fugitive. My legs gave out, and I sat on the floor, back pressed to the wall, gasping like I'd just survived a car crash. This wasn't love anymore. It wasn't even heartbreak. This was psychological warfare. And somehow, she always stayed one step ahead. The worst part? I still hadn't spoken to her since I left. Not once. No calls. No texts. She hadn't tried to explain. No apology. Just these cryptic, calculated moves that felt more like a game than regret. What did she want from me? Was this her way of winning me back, or breaking me down? And if she was willing to chase me this far, how far would she really go? I didn't know where else to go, so I spent the night in a 24-hour laundromat. It wasn't exactly a fortress, but it had security cameras, lights that never turned off, and the comforting buzz of dryers spinning like nothing was wrong. I curled up on a bench near the vending machines, surrounded by detergent fumes and the soft hum of strangers folding clothes. No one noticed me. No one asked questions. For the first time in days, I felt invisible, and that was the only peace I had left. By morning, I made a decision. I couldn't keep running like this, hopping from motel to motel, waiting for another sticky note or whispered name in the dark. I needed to know how she was finding me. Was it my bank card? A GPS tracker? A shared cloud account I forgot to shut down? I didn't know what scared me more, the idea that she had help, or that she was doing all this completely alone. I found an old-school tech guy through a classified ad, the kind who wore sweatpants to his shop and kept stacks of old phones next to a cat that looked like it had given up on life. He didn't ask why I needed my devices scanned. He just raised an eyebrow, grunted, and got to work. 30 minutes later, he handed me my phone and said, "You had something buried deep. Real deep. Like spy movie deep." It was a hidden app, one I never downloaded. It didn't even show up in the normal settings. It tracked locations, recorded ambient sound, and synced data to an external drive every time I connected to Wi-Fi. The app had been installed nearly 8 months ago, and that crushed me more than I can explain. She hadn't just betrayed me physically. She'd been studying me, tracking me like prey. I left the shop nauseous, deleting everything, throwing the phone in a sewer drain like it had been a cursed object. I bought a prepaid flip phone from a corner store, paid cash again, and walked with it switched off until I was 10 blocks away. I didn't care how paranoid I looked. I was done being predictable. That night, I checked into a tiny roadside inn that barely looked functional. One story, no lobby, just a bell on the counter and a sleepy man behind a plastic window who gave me a key without even asking for ID. Perfect. Room 3. I deadbolted the door, shoved a chair under the knob, and finally took a breath. The room smelled like mildew and sadness, but it was quiet. I collapsed onto the bed, face buried in the pillow, trying to convince myself I was safe. Until I went to the bathroom and found it, taped to the mirror. A photo of me, from that morning, standing outside the tech guy's shop. No note, no message, just the photo. Fresh ink, edges still curling from the heat of a printer. She had been there. She had followed me there. Maybe she even watched me through the window. And I hadn't seen her. I yanked it off the mirror and backed into the hallway, barefoot, heart slamming into my throat. I knocked on every door, asked the man at the front desk if anyone else had checked in that day. He just shrugged and said, I don't really keep track. You're the only one who stayed more than an hour. I didn't sleep again. I didn't even close my eyes. Because this wasn't a game anymore. This wasn't love. This was a hunt. By the next morning, my thoughts weren't my own anymore. They didn't feel like thoughts. They felt like whispers crawling through the back of my skull, urging me to leave again, hide again, vanish deeper. But where do you go when the person chasing you knows how you breathe? I was tired, not in the way sleep could fix, but in the way that makes you forget who you were before all this started. I needed answers. Not just about how Felice was tracking me, but why? Why not call? Why not scream at me like a normal betrayed wife? Why act like a shadow? I thought about going to the police, but what would I say? My ex-wife is emotionally stalking me without ever speaking to me? That wouldn't hold up. Not without proof. Not unless she physically harmed me. And deep down, some naive, broken part of me still didn't believe she would. I took the photo she left on the mirror, folded it into my wallet, and got back in the car. I drove 4 hours east to a town so small it didn't even have a Starbucks. I parked behind a church, walked into a local thrift store, and bought a worn-out duffel bag and a hoodie 2 sizes too big. The idea was to change my look enough to make her second-guess every glimpse of a man in the crowd. But it didn't matter. Because that night, something else happened. After finding a cheap extended-stay motel, I decided to turn my burner phone on, just for a moment. Just long enough to check the voicemail, in case someone had called by accident. There were 3 missed calls from an unknown number. No messages. But the 4th one, it was different. A voice message. 6 seconds long. From her. Only she didn't mean to leave it. It was muffled, like the phone was in her bag. I could barely make out the words. But what I did hear, clear as day, was another voice. A man's voice. Saying, he'll come back eventually. They always do. Then her laughter. Short. Cold. She wasn't chasing me to fix things. She was chasing me to win. Suddenly, all the notes, the photos, the quiet stalking, it made sense. This wasn't remorse. It was performance. A power play. A twisted trophy hunt. She didn't miss me. She missed control. And I'd taken that from her when I walked out without permission. Without giving her the final word. And now she wanted it back. I smashed the burner against the wall. Pieces flew across the room like shrapnel. I didn't care anymore. I wasn't scared. I was angry. Furious. And more than anything, done. That night, I did something I hadn't done since I disappeared. I opened my laptop and logged into our old shared cloud account. She thought I'd deleted everything, but I kept one emergency backup, just in case. There were dozens of new files. Photos of me. Videos. Screenshots of my location. Voicemails I'd left months ago, ones she never responded to. Even a note titled, "What I'll Say If He Finally Cracks." She had been preparing, crafting her version of the story, laying out her redemption arc. But I had it now. All of it. And I realized something terrifying. I couldn't run anymore, because this wasn't about escape. It was about confrontation. I didn't sleep that night. My body was still, but my thoughts kept pacing. I had the evidence. The screenshots, the voice message, the creepy note labeled, "What I'll Say If He Finally Cracks." I'd spent weeks thinking I was being chased by someone who wanted me back. But now I knew the truth. This wasn't love. It was a theater. A performance meant to trap me in her version of closure. One where she decided how the story ended, and who got to be the villain. The next morning, I checked out before dawn. I didn't say a word to the receptionist. I just walked out into the cold with everything I owned shoved into a frayed duffel bag. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't keep hiding. I had to let her say it. Whatever it was. She'd been dancing in the shadows long enough. If she wanted a confrontation, she'd get it. But it would be on my terms. I bought a burner phone again, loaded the SIM card, and sent her a message from a number she didn't know. Just 4 words. "You want closure? Talk." No response. Not for hours. I thought maybe she wouldn't reply. Maybe the silence was finally real. Then around 8:32 p.m., the phone rang. No name. No caller ID. Just the hollow sound of my heart pounding in my ears. I answered. At first, neither of us said anything. All I could hear was her breathing. Soft. Calm. I expected tears or panic or shouting. But instead, she broke the silence with 3 words I hadn't heard since the day I left. "I miss you." I didn't say anything. She kept going, like she had rehearsed every line. "You should have stayed. We could have worked through it. I only did what I did because I felt invisible. You stopped seeing me, Irving. You made me feel like I was fading. And Clay, He made me feel real again. Hearing his name made my jaw lock, but I forced myself to stay quiet. She continued, I never planned to leave you. He was just temporary, just a distraction. You were my constant. But when you walked out without a word, without even giving me a chance to explain, that broke something in me. I had to find you. I needed you to see the whole picture. That wasn't closure, I finally said. That was surveillance. She laughed, soft and slow, like she pitied me. You don't get it. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to manage the fallout. I knew you'd run. I just didn't think you'd stay gone this long. And the photo on the mirror? I asked. The motel? The whisper in the woods? Was that part of your plan too? Silence. Then she said the one thing that made my blood run cold. I never whispered your name in the woods. I sat up straight, every muscle locked. What? That night, she said, voice low. I wasn't there. I didn't find you until the tech shop. The rest. I have no idea what you're talking about. A chill ran down my spine. Either she was lying, or I'd been watched by someone else entirely. She ended the call before I could ask more. And suddenly, a new fear settled into my bones. What if this wasn't just about betrayal anymore? What if I'd stepped into something bigger? Something I hadn't even begun to understand? After that call, nothing made sense. If she hadn't been at the cabin, if the whisper in the woods wasn't hers, then who had been watching me that night? My gut told me Felice wasn't lying. Not about that part. For all her flaws, manipulation, and emotional warfare, she didn't fake fear. And in that moment, I heard it in her voice. She sounded rattled, unsure, like someone else had stolen the script from her hands. But that was the final thread. I couldn't keep chasing shadows. Couldn't keep letting fear write my story. I took everything I'd found, the hidden tracking app, the voice message, the screenshots, and spoke to someone who knew how to make sense of it all. A friend of a friend, ex-IT for a security firm, off the books. He confirmed it. There had been 2 different tracking sources on my devices. One Felice installed, and one that wasn't hers. The second one was older, possibly months before she started snooping. It hit me then. The control I felt slipping in my marriage hadn't started when Felice cheated. It had started when I stopped paying attention to myself. I let life run me on autopilot. I ignored what didn't feel right, even in my own mind. I kept trusting comfort over curiosity. I saw her growing distant and told myself, you're just tired. I stopped checking in with who I was, what I needed, what I deserved. So I made a new decision. I didn't go back to her. I didn't chase revenge. I didn't beg for explanations. I simply let go. I moved again, not to hide this time, but to begin. I deleted the old backups, changed my name legally, bought a tiny fixer-upper near the coast, and finally started teaching local history part-time at a community college. Yeah, the same job I thought I'd missed out on years ago. Turns out, it was just waiting for the right version of me to show up. I also got a dog. Her name's Fern. She doesn't care who broke my heart or why I sleep with the window open. She just curls up at my feet and listens when I talk too much. I'm not healed, but I'm not broken either. And one day, maybe 5 or 6 months later, I got a postcard in the mail. No return address. Just 2 words. You won. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just walked outside, tore it up, and let the wind carry the pieces into the waves. Because winning was never the point. Freedom was. If you've ever had to walk away from something that once felt like everything, you know how hard it is to start again, and how worth it can be. Tell us in the comments. What's one moment in history where someone walked away, and it changed everything?